In this video, I will be explaining the names of notes along with their value and their rest symbol. I'll also be explaining dotted notes. I'll be listing the notes on this side of the screen one by one. Although I'll be using the British note naming system in this video, I'll also list their American equivalent name. No system is better than the other, but you'll notice that the American names appear smaller. This is purely to save space on the screen. So let's start with a semibreve or whole note. As you can see from the far left-hand column, it looks very much like a small letter O. In fact, when you start to write music, it's often easier just to think of it as a small letter O. It has a value of 4. This is a minim and has a value of 2. It looks like a semibreve, but it has a stem, that little black line attached to it. As it has a value of 2, you'd need 2 minims to equal the value of 1 semibreve, which has the value of 4. Any note which has a stem, and we'll look at some more in a moment, it's very important to ensure that the stem is on the right if the note head is at the bottom, whereas the stem is placed on the left if the note head is at the top. This sounds like me being very picky, but it's very important. Here's a capital letter E. If I move the line to the other side, it looks very odd. In fact, it looks like the number 3. Not very helpful if you mean an E rather than a 3. The correct placement of the stem is just as important. All notes with stems follow this rule. This is a crotchet and has a value of 1. Notice how it looks like a minim, but the note head is all black. As it has a value of 1, you'd need 4 crotchets to equal the value of 1 semibreve. This is a quaver and has a value of half. Notice how it looks like a crotchet, but we've added a tail to the stem. Let's just take a moment to look a little more at tails. Here are 2 quavers, each with their tails, and I've highlighted one of the tails so you can be absolutely sure about what I'm referring to. When 2 quavers sit next to each other, and sometimes 3 or 4, the tails can often be glued together to look like this. This means there are still 2 quavers, and together they equal 1, because half plus a half equals 1. Now, there are some quite complex rules relating to joining of notes like these together. Musicians refer to the rules as beaming. I look at beaming in another video, so if you need some assistance, have a look there if you need to. So, as the quaver has a value of half, you'd need how many to equal the value of 1 semibreve? You'd need 8. As I mentioned earlier, the stem always sits on the right if the note head is at the bottom, and on the left if the note head is at the top. However, the tail always sits on the right. This would never be correct, as the tail is on the left. Finally, this is a semiquaver. Semi means half, so it literally means half a quaver. Half of a quaver would be a quarter. Notice how it looks like a quaver but has another tail added. When 4 semiquavers sit next to each other, and sometimes 2 or 3 semiquavers, the stems can be glued together to look like this. It's worth noting here that different notes with tails, like quavers and semiquavers, can often be joined or beamed together. This isn't always possible, and as I said earlier, I do look at beaming in another of my videos. However, so you understand what I mean by this, here is a quaver and 2 semiquavers. Because all of the notes have tails, they are often beamed together to look like this. Notice how they are beamed. They are all neatly joined together to form one group. This grouping would be incorrect because one of the tails of the final semiquaver is sticking out of the group of notes. This would also be incorrect because only the top line is joining all 3 notes. The second tail is not joined together.